Today, you're going to watch a jam-packed video, friends. In this video, I'll be sharing some very important data and insights about crypto with you. And by the end of this video, you'll feel completely satisfied and full when it comes to crypto. You know, there's that steak scene in Tom and Jerry. There's a steak that looks really delicious. They devour that steak, you know, that feeling of fullness. I think you'll have that kind of feeling of satisfaction by the end of this video. Those who follow me regularly know that I occasionally share this pattern, this texture here. This is a bull cycle. It's a bull cycle pattern that lasts 1064 days, friends. And in this cycle, there has always been a rise from the lowest point of the bull to its highest point in 1064 days. And this has happened twice. Right now, the possibility of it happening a third time also looks accurate according to the current indicator. So today, I will explain this 1064-day bull cycle season. I will explain when the altcoin season will happen. And there is an altcoin report from Coinbase. This report contains important information about the altcoin season. I will talk about these. When could Ethereum reach its peak? We will discuss these and I will explain the relationship between the M2 money supply and this bull cycle. If you're ready, let's get into the video. Friends, welcome back to my video. As you know, I've been traveling around a bit lately. I wanted to visit some countries and experience different cultures. Of course, I didn't stay away from crypto during this time, but now we'll be back with packed videos. We might have a busy season ahead. The last quarter of 2025 could be really great. That's why we might need to work hard. Now I'm back in front of the screen, friends, and look, what do we see here? A bull cycle, a bear cycle, a bull cycle, a bear cycle, a bull cycle, a bear cycle, and right now we're in a bull cycle again. I've shared this chart before. I share it from time to time. Do you know when I shared it? I shared it during this cycle. Back when Bitcoin was $15,000, my video is still up. I said, friends, I think we're at the bottom. The bear season is ending. And if we look at previous periods, bear seasons lasted about 360, 380 days. I said it might be over. When we look at the bull cycle, the bull season we experienced in 2017 lasted 1064 days. We describe the bull season like this. In the 2017 bull cycle, the period from the lowest point in that cycle to the highest point lasted 1064 days. Then, since it usually repeats every 4 years, when we look at the same bull cycle in 2021, it also lasted exactly 1064 days. Look, it lasted the exact same number of days, friends. I don't know if it's a coincidence, but from the lowest point to the highest point, it took exactly 1064 days. And notice, I'm talking about another 4-year cycle again. 2017, 2021. Add another 4 years. Yes, you guessed it right. The year 2025. So, friends, if this 1064-day cycle repeats in 2025, when will the peak be for Bitcoin? When will the peak be for Ethereum? When will the peak be for the altcoin season? We will talk about these. Now, when we look at this cycle compared to the previous one, it's continuing in a very balanced way. Let me say that on behalf of Bitcoin. M2 and spot Bitcoin ETFs are also related to this. I'll explain that as well. But I want to touch on this point. Look, if we look at just this cycle, we might see an all-time high for Bitcoin in October 2025, and the Bitcoin bull cycle could be completed for 2025. Is this a definite situation? No, it's not definite, but a cycle that has repeated before could repeat again. And now I'll explain its supply in relation to M2. By the way, if you haven't registered on Binance yet, there's a Binance registration link in the video description. You can sign up there and verify your identity. At the same time, you can earn $20 that you can withdraw, friends. Details are in the video description. And if Bitcoin hits an all-time high in October, in previous cycles, we've generally seen Ethereum reach its all-time high 2 or 3 weeks later. In this case, around November 10th, 11th, 12th, or 13th, we might see an all-time high for Ethereum as well. And then a week or two later, altcoins usually hit their all-time highs and start to crash. So, in December, we could also see all-time highs for altcoins. What does this mean? It means that in the last quarter of 2025, October, November, December, we could experience an altcoin season. We could experience a nice altcoin season. Now, there's also a Coinbase report about this. I'll talk about that. But first, I want to move on to the M2 money supply. Let's do a little test for our regular viewers again. Do you remember? I had written an article explaining the relationship between the M2 money supply and a 110, 108-day lag. That's about a 12-week lag, folks. And during that time, Bitcoin was really crashing one after another. But this shows something. What is the M2 money supply in the world? It's the total of all the M2 money printed by countries like the US, Japan, Germany. In other words, the total money supply in circulation. And as central banks keep printing money, the M2 keeps increasing. They add up all the M2s in the world, calculated in US dollars, and then add 12 weeks to it. So Bitcoin lags behind by 12 weeks, and we see that it matches up exactly. I had shared a tweet about this with you. So the money supply from 12 weeks ago will give us an idea about today's Bitcoin level. And we open TradingView, friends. We opened TradingView and I added 12 weeks. This blue line you see is the M2 money supply. And this is the price of Bitcoin. Look, of course, there is a 12-week difference between them. There is a 12-week lag. And this is what we see. When M2 increases, Bitcoin increases. When M2 decreases, Bitcoin decreases. M2 starts to rise again and Bitcoin starts to rise again as well. And pay attention, look here in October. Do you see October right there? There is also a significant drop in the M2 money supply. So there is a bottom. This is another sign that strengthens the possibility of seeing a peak in October. Now, is the relationship between the M2 money supply and Bitcoin very strong? It wasn't very strong in the past, but as you may remember, in 2024, we did a live broadcast and celebrated the spot Bitcoin ETF. We popped confetti and had fun. It was great. Time passes so quickly, it's almost been 2 years. After the 2024 Bitcoin ETF, the correlation between the M2 money supply with a 12-week lag and Bitcoin has risen to 80%. So now they're closely related. This is a strong relationship for us. All right, friends, now I want to dig a bit deeper into the altcoin season. Coinbase recently released a report. In this report, which was published on August 14th, it's an altcoin season report. I reviewed and read this report. I want to share a few data points from it with you. In March 2025, Coinbase had published another report. In that report, they said the market could see a bottom in the first half of 2025 and predicted a rise in the following periods. This largely came true. In the same report, they are also expecting a full-fledged altcoin season for September 2025. They are anticipating a productive altcoin season. Now here, they are talking about dominance. Notice that in June, dominance dropped from 65% to 59%, friends. This is a serious sign for an altcoin season, and if this decline in dominance continues, altcoins will become even more active. And in the new report, friends, they mention CoinMarketCap's altcoin index. The altcoin index is still in the 40s. It's not at a very high level. But despite this, friends, since July, the altcoin market cap has risen from around $1 trillion to about $1.7 trillion. So it has experienced a very significant increase. I want to share with you another piece of data that I consider very important. The blue line you see here represents the amount of Ethereum reserves on exchanges. The black line shows the price of Ethereum. Look, friends, the amount of Ethereum on exchanges has been seriously decreasing since 2021. We call this a supply shock. In other words, a shortage could occur in Ethereum. And of course, the price of Ethereum has risen from $1,000 to $4,000. This is also a very valuable piece of data. Again, in the Coinbase report, they mentioned the 12-week delayed M2 report that I talked about. From time to time, I keep track of this M2 myself. That too is a signal for altcoins for us. Finally, one of the topics I care about most is US interest rates. In fact, it's a topic that all of us care about. Right now, there are $7.2 trillion in the US money markets, friends. That is, in interest-based products, bank interest rates, or bonds. So when is the next meeting? On September 17th. There is a 92% chance that interest rates will be cut, friends. In October, the probability of a rate cut is even higher, and in December, we might see another rate cut, friends. So 2 of them are certain. Maybe they'll get 3 rate cuts in a row, and this $7.2 trillion could flow into the altcoin markets. My friends, nothing I explained in this video is investment advice. I hope, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, this has been a video that made you as happy as eating a steak. If you have any questions on your mind, feel free to ask. We would be happy if you support us by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Don't hold back on these. Hope to see you in the next video. Goodbye.